Hello and welcome to Geektopia of me, Adam Carruthers, back with a brand new edition of Adam's Apples. What is Adam's Apples, you ask? It's pretty simple. It's part of Geektopia and it's where I can create lists, absolutely anything that springs to mind. In fact, today's one is a bit of a follow-up because my previous Adam's Apples was my favorite 80s cartoons. Today, it's part one of my favorite 90s cartoons. Okay, before we start, just to clarify a few things. I'm splitting this list into two because the 90s had too many good cartoons. I mean, it's when creativity really came out, I feel. It's just, wow, looking back at the list of cartoons I used to watch, Dexter's Laboratory, Powerpuff Girls, even like a CGI animated, it was the first, I think, Reboot. Remember that? There are so many, I'm not going to mention all of them here. Secondly, all the cartoons that I'm going to talk about had to have pretty much started in the 90s. So you're not going to see Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on the list because that started in 87, even though it carried on into the 90s all the way up to 1996. I can't put it into this list. You get what I mean? Now, that's out of the way, let's start. So for today, I'm only going to talk about two cartoons, and they are super important cartoons, not just for me, but I think pop culture in general. And I couldn't separate the two. Adam's Apples, usually it's a list of 5 things, or however many, but not in any particular order. But the two I'm going to talk about today, I think stand on top of the mountain when it comes to 90s cartoons. Everyone else is just behind them because they are so good. First and foremost, it's Batman, the animated series.
I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman.
So why Batman the Animated Series? Because I love this show. Even here we are, almost 30 years later, and I still rewatch it. I even go and collect the toys, like, for example, this. This is the dual set Joker and Harley Quinn, Mad Love. I have the Blu-ray. I also have the DVDs. I even have the digital versions, which I bought off iTunes. And my most recent acquisition is this, the book, Batman the Animated Series. I mean, it's just stunning. Look at that. This is a collection of all the artwork from the show. Two-Face speaks volumes about just how wonderful the show is, that merchandise like this can still come out decades after the show finished. It's just amazing, in my opinion. As for the history of the show, it started in 1992. It only ran, technically speaking, for 2 seasons, for 85 episodes, but it had a lot of spin-offs. Superman, the animated series, the New Batman Adventures, which had more characters, Batman Beyond, it's set in the future, Justice League Unlimited. There was even a cinema-released movie, Batman Master the Phantasm, which, if you haven't seen, could possibly be the greatest Batman film ever, full stop. Really, you have to go and check it out. There was a direct-to-video movie, Batman and Mr. Freeze, Sub-Zero, and the spin-offs even had their own movies. There was Batman Beyond, Return the Joker, and a spin-off from the New Batman Adventures, which was Batman, Mystery of the Batwoman. It all started from one show to have multiple TV shows spin-off from that, and even movies. It's won a Primetime Emmy. It's won multiple Daytime Emmys as well. And I haven't even touched on the cast, the actors. I just want to highlight Kevin Conroy, who plays Batman, Bruce Wayne. The guy is the definition now of Batman. For so many people, when they're reading a Batman comic, it's his voice they hear. He's gone on to reprise the role of Batman in multiple things. He even played a live-action Bruce Wayne in the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover thing they had last year of The Flash and Arrow and all that. An older and broken Batman. He's even voiced Batman in the Arkham series of video games, a highly acclaimed series of video games, with Mark Hamill also back in as the Joker. That is how tied up they are with this role. The writing for the show was just astounding. It really was. I mean, I showed you this earlier on. That's Harley Quinn right there. Nowadays, everybody knows Harley Quinn because of Margot Robbie and Suicide Squad, Birds of Prey, but she was created for Batman the Animated Series. Yeah, that's where she started, not in the comics. And Mr. Freeze, I mentioned him early on, they had a movie. He was a bit of a joke character before the animated series came about. He was just a bit of a nothing figure, but they added a backstory to him. They added some gravitas to him in that he was a villain driven not by wanting to get money and rob people and kill people. He was just trying to save his dying wife who had been frozen as he tried to find a cure. It's just, wow. It just added so much more depth to the characters. That's why it went beyond just a normal cartoon. What about its greater cultural impact? Well, I've talked about the spin-offs, the TV shows and the movies. There was merchandise, video games, there was also a comic book. And in fact, on that note, April of last year, DC started publishing something new called Batman The Adventures Continue. And they got Alan Burnett and Paul Dini, producers of the original show, to come on board and be part of this and helm it. And it really, really is cool. It started off as digital only, and since then they've printed it. It's just finished its season 1 or volume 1. Volume 2 should be out around May. It really is quite cool and worth checking out. A continuation of what we saw on TV. And by the way, this is just a rumor, but there could be a reboot, a revival, a continuation, whatever you want to call it, of Batman the Animated Series on HBO Max. It is allegedly in the pipeline. Again, this is completely unconfirmed, but I am keeping my fingers crossed for that. HBO Max is where you can also watch the original series. You can get it on Blu-ray, you can get it on DVD, whatever. Just go and enjoy the masterpiece that is Batman the Animated Series. So what is the next item I consider at the pinnacle of 90s cartoons? Before I name it, I need to clarify myself, because earlier on I said I only wanted cartoons that started in the 90s to be on this list, and I still stand by that. But the next item was originally a series of short animations on the Tracy Ullman Show, and by the time they got their own show, it was late 1989. Only one episode aired in 1989, then the series continued with its first season in 1990. It's still going on today. I am referring to The Simpsons. The show is currently in its 32nd season. 32 years of The Simpsons. If that was a person, it would be married already. It would have a child, most likely. It's won a whole bunch of awards. 34 Primetime Emmy Awards. 2 Peabody Awards. 2. Not 1, but 2 Peabody Awards. The recognition The Simpsons has achieved, I would say it's almost unprecedented, particularly for an animation.
We did it, baby! Woo! Woo!
Saying all this, I have to point out that I feel the quality of the episodes has gone downhill as time has progressed, as is the case with most TV shows.
Your script sucks.
You little...
The longer it goes on, the harder it is for writers to keep it fresh, original, engaging, and maybe realistic depending on the show. The 90s were where it was at. For sure. I think back of some iconic episodes like Who Shot Mr. Burns, the 2-parter. That was global news. It was a big talking point. I think of some of the cameos, the guest actors they had. Mulder and Scully is the first one that pops into my mind for some reason. Elizabeth Taylor, one of Hollywood's most famous actresses, came in and said just one word as a guest voiceover artist. She was the voice of Maggie when she said her first words.
Daddy.
Getting Elizabeth Taylor to come and do that. Even Michael Jackson came and did an episode of the show, okay? Michael Jackson, who at the time was the biggest star in the world.
Billie Jean is not my lover. She's just a girl who says that I am the one.
But what is it about the show that makes it so special? It's the world building. Strip away the fancy guest voice actors that have come in, strip away specific storylines. It's that people are relatable. In the town of Springfield, all around the world, people are watching The Simpsons, and we all know every resident of that town. We know The Simpsons, but we know who is in the schools. We know the bus driver, we know the criminals, we know the mafia, we know the police. This entire town is known the world over. That is amazing world building, in my opinion. The Simpsons themselves have become iconic. The family, that is. ICONIC. When you say the name Homer, you don't think of the Greek poet, you think of Homer Simpson.
Go, 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 go! Go!
When you say Bart now, you're more likely to think of Bart Simpson.
Ay, caramba!
It is a level of fame, it is a level of world building very few other mediums of creativity will ever achieve. And it's spun off into comic books, video games, even soundtracks of original music. Like I had one which I remember so well, Do the Bartman. That song is still in my head. It just pops up here and there, and I listened to that like 25 years ago, whenever it was. For me, The Simpsons is the definition of pop culture, and I also gotta say hi to all the voice actors who have done an amazing job voicing many different characters within the show. Dan Castellaneta, hope I'm saying your surname correctly, is my favorite because he's the voice of Homer, and Groundskeeper Willie, and Grandpa. All of them are just brilliant at what they do. Nancy Cartwright, the voice of Bart, just been doing the same role all these decades later. Thumbs up to you. Seriously, massive thumbs up. Now, that wraps up my list for today. The two shows, Batman the Animated Series and The Simpsons, which stand head and shoulders above any other animation in the 90s, and maybe ever of all time, not just the 90s. Next week, it will be part 2, where I will feature 3 further animations from the 90s, which I grew up loving, and let's face it, probably still do love. But do you agree or disagree with my list? Make sure you leave a comment, make sure you share this video, make sure you subscribe to Geektopia as well. My name is Adam Carruthers, signing out for now.